Welcome, everybody, to the Summoning Hour, episode 5. And today I'm bringing back an old coworker of mine and longtime game developer, game designer, Nellie Hughes. Hi, Nellie. How's it going?
Hi, pretty good.
I just want to say definitely congrats on finding a new role. I know it's been a tough time for everyone in the industry, and I was so happy to hear that you landed a new role and at a place like Turn 10 as a game designer. That's super cool. They are coming off a big win with Forza Horizon, so I'm stoked that you're there and you get to kind of be around for that. Why don't you give us a little history about where you were at beforehand and kind of how you even got started?
Sure. Well, I guess I could start with how I got started. I think, like most people that work in this industry, I was a huge fan of games as a child, and I had an opportunity to go to a school that my dad worked at. So I have the privilege of not having school debt. But I thought, what do I want to do as a 23-year-old party girl? And they started a video game program that year. And so I decided that if I wasn't going to have any debt, I'm going to take a chance on doing something that I really used to love, and I ended up going through that program, and I feel really lucky about that, and it was great. And then I ended up my first industry gig was at Cryptic Studios for a open world content designer. I shipped City of Villains, and that was my first title. And then I moved on to, I did some City Heroes live work, and then I shipped Champions Online. I ended up crunching out Star Trek Online like 6 months later, and then I ended up doing some pre-pro work on Neverwinter Online. During that time, I got an offer from 38 Studios, which, as some may know, has a pretty crazy reputation. I was there for about 2 years. I did go down with that ship in Rhode Island. That was a really special experience. I feel like not just because we all trauma bonded at that level, but like I got to meet some really amazing people from the industry that like became my best friends. And so I loved that experience. There, I was also a content designer. And so after that, I really focused on trying to get out west because I knew that, all the game hubs were out here. And so my old boss from 38 Studios, Jason Roberts, contacted me about shipping Guild Wars 2 in China. And so that's when I made my way out to the Pacific Northwest, and that was, my gosh, 2013. And so I worked on Guild Wars for about 6 years, and I was the team lead for the expansion map Oric Basin, which was like a really fun map to work on, especially like when you have a boss that's called Octovine. And I ended up doing some Living World releases and then went into some like people management stuff. And so there I kind of went over to Undead Labs and I did Monolith for a while, and then I ended up at my role, sorry, Xbox. I was the design director at Xbox Publishing right before this job, and then I just kind of took the last year off, and then ended up at Turn 10
For
recently.
anyone who's not familiar, 38 Studios is an
Yeah.
epic story. I mean, I think it's epic because it's just what can happen when someone's so passionate about games, but then also what can happen when someone's so passionate about games that they're not fully aware of the internals or just kind of
There were a lot of
pushing
things
boundaries.
going on. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, there were a lot of factors going on that kind of behind the scenes that definitely accelerated the downfall of that studio, unfortunately. So yeah, that was a bummer.
Which is super sad because the Kingdoms of Amalur, the single player game,
Reckoning was
was
awesome.
fantastic. It was fun.
Big
It
Huge
was
did an amazing
fun,
job. It was super. Those freaking chakras and like the hammer,
right?
like oh my gosh, yes.
It was visceral. It was fun. The progression was just it was different, and that if that was the promise that the MMO had to it, it would have been incredible. But this was early 2000s. It was kind of a chaotic time. It was
Yeah.
funded in questionable ways and the ways that it got it into trouble. And so I would love to at some point know more about that. I don't know if you're able to say it, but I hope there's like a statute of limitations on how long we can keep this under wraps because there was only so much that was talked about from the legal sense because it had to do with the
Yeah.
government of Rhode
Yep. The
Island.
governor. Yep.
So
Yep.
so there's controversy there. So for anyone who's not familiar with that, go check it. Can you give us the TLDR on what happened?
I think the TLDR was when you build a studio that quickly in that short amount of time, things change quickly and like expenses balloon very, very quickly. And I think that just like, we had to do like 200 people in a year or something. Yeah, because there were deals, and I don't know all the details, but like we had to have a certain number of people, and we had to get them on quickly, and that just I think that's expensive. You're moving all those people from the West Coast, that stuff adds up.
And you look at any game development process, there's a reason why ramp hiring ramps up, because you need a small core to know what you're doing to then build what you're actually building in scale and in scope, and you're still making adjustments along the way. You're riding the ship as you're building it and you're already out on the ocean at some point.
Yeah,
It's a lesson that everyone's probably already familiar with, but when you take that little context alone of saying 200 people in a year, that's a recipe for threading the needle.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there like so many people were impacted that also came at the end, and they got like double impacted in a lot or triple impacted in a lot of ways, and that was a real bummer to like kind of have to see all that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Goodness. So now you and I met on Guild Wars 2. That
Mm-hmm.
was a fun time. We were, yeah, we
Both
were, I
fun.
was the QA lead on Guild Wars 2 China, co-managing the rest of Guild Wars 2. And I don't think we worked too much hand in hand. Like I was mostly heads down on like the art censoring.
Oh my gosh, I remember that. Yeah, you had to like switch out the certain assets. Do remember that. We didn't have the tech to do that at the time. So yeah, that was so
No,
great.
a
Yeah.
lot of that was done manually, and me and one other QA person had to go through every piece of art in the game, every model, every texture, every armor, every weapon, every skill icon, every item icon. And we were able to kind of bundle things out together, but like it still took an inordinate amount of time. And learning that we could develop the software to help that, or the process to do that, that was one of those first introductions to creating a full game development process from a production side that I was
Yeah.
exposed to. And that was actually kind of that turning point for me when I said, okay, I'm moving from QA into production. And I just
Well,
need,
that's cool. So the China
yeah,
project did that.
the China project definitely did that. And so then I moved to wargaming for that, and I started as a production coordinator and really cut my teeth there. But you and I worked together there, and then we were at Undead Labs together.
We were at Undead Labs together. That was a quick stint. That was an interesting place.
Yeah, you were
Yep,
design managing
I
there,
was.
so
I was doing people management. I wasn't even doing game design at that time. So,
so and that's one of the curious points for me is like a lot of times when you see someone who's really good at doing the individual contributor or the implementation side, they get promoted based off of being good at their skills, but not necessarily wanting to be a leader or a communicator
yeah,
or someone who grows talent. And that was something that I saw in you when we met up at GDC. I saw you actually have that fundamental shift on how you talked about your team, how you talked about the people underneath you. And then that's when I joined Undead Labs shortly after that. And you were there. And I just remembered being like, that's rare having someone who jumps from being close to the project to then being willing to step backwards so others can be close to it. I had
yeah,
that experience as a QA tester to QA lead. I was then managing a few testers underneath me, but I had to get used to not being in the game as much, but then
yeah,
building that trust with my team to know that they were going to do things to the level that was expected, but then also have their own skill set and develop from there, which I was trying to help them elaborate from a design side when it's much more creative than I would say QA has creative direction, but design is you're building the game, you're playing with the Legos, you're asking for Legos. How was that for you to transition from hands on, boots on the ground in the game to trying to nurture talent?
So honestly, like I woke up one day and I was like, I can't write fucking stories about dragons anymore. Like I just could not. I was done. I was done. And I actually like told my boss at the time that I was going to leave and go back to school for UX UI. And he said that like Blizzard had this new design manager position and, would I be interested in doing people management instead of just like, direct development. And I needed a change and I feel like I'm never gonna ever tell anybody I'm the best designer ever. Like, I think that one of my superpowers is more like, people interactions and like relationship management. And so I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna try it. And so, I think ArenaNet I got like the whole gambit of people management, right? Like ArenaNet, I had a super happy team and we were like moving forward. It was like, ice cream every week and we were just like, it was all good. And then, I had some other experiences like Undead was going through a transitional phase, right? Like they had just been acquired by Microsoft. And so people were in a different mental space. And so like kind of dealing with that. And the same with Monolith. It was definitely like just it was not all wine and roses and it was just a very eye-opening different experience.
You even took that step farther, going from people management into director level at Microsoft Publishing. Now, publishing is already a different beast, but then being
Yeah.
a director is also another beast. So, what was that transition like for you, being that it was two flavors of difference at a higher level of authority and accountability and expectation?
I think like the biggest change for me was the mindset of having to look at the product like from such a like a bird's eye view. Because I was like, I'm so used to being in the tools and like seeing what we can do with the tools and like thinking about like specific system design or content design and like you can't do that. And so like having to kind of come at it from a very top-down holistic view of like what basically why are people going to play this game? And it went into, I actually got to do some really cool stuff with like player personas, like, player motivations, using those to like, basically as a design raiser to help scope game features. And like that was a whole new experience. It took me about a year to understand, but like quantic boundary stuff. And so like it was very cool. And so I really enjoyed publishing, but it took me about a year to learn all the Microsoft acronyms, and it took me about another year to like be able to kind of think about a game at such a high level that I'm not thinking about specific parts of it. I'm thinking about it as like the whole package.
Was the maybe like your favorite thing or the thing that helped it click for you, like the thing that was most interesting to learn that then almost made it enjoyable to entertain from like that bird's eye view?
I had some really great teammates that I worked with that kind of like, brought me along on the ride of my transition from like development to publishing, and I feel very lucky about that. I also think, just having the level of access to data that like you get at a publisher like Xbox, like I found that that was really interesting to me, and so I just kind of like picked that lane and really went down it. And I would say that like, I think the thing that was the most useful to me was kind of about like using data in a creative way. And it was Kim Swift actually said this to me that, like you can use data to get ideas about designs and where they may go, but like there's so many other factors that you need to take into consideration with like what is this game, what skills do the team have, and like along with like do they have the features of the people that we're trying to make the game for? And that's kind of like the success to being able to, get a successful product at like a AAA level.
Yeah, being that you're so used to looking at systems and design docs and then having to come out and be like seeing how all the loops feed each other, all the interdependencies, and then say, is this fun? Is there a compelling business reason
Yeah.
for this? Is there a reason this game exists? Is there a reason that we can say this feeds the overall Xbox priorities and pillars? Is this meeting all the CEO's expectations at the time? Because you start getting up
And
and
what
up
does the
and up,
market
and
look like you said, right?
yeah,
Like what is the catalog? Yeah, yeah, there's so many factors that go into that like I'm glad not all of that was on my shoulders, and we had wonderful business people who knew all of that stuff to help us make those decisions. But yeah, it's like, and then like what is fun? Fun is like a subjective word that like what I find fun, you don't find fun. And so like seeing how large companies like turn that into data to be able to kind of like see if it's fun, right? Because like yeah, I can't walk into a gate meeting and tell like my organizational head that like yeah, it was fun, I played it and I liked it. I have to like talk about why it was fun. And so like you know at least with the player motivation kind of profile stuff, like that'll give you a good way that like everybody can kind of get on the same page with the same
I
level.
love data. I like there's been this term being data driven that was I would say introduced more 10 years ago when analytics
Hmm.
were kind of coming into play, and that data driven came across and it came out in that first implementation. The expression that I saw was that what the data says you do. There
Yeah.
wasn't much, it was very authoritarian in that this thing was your approval and why you would do something. But as that shifted, that got softer because it became that wasn't the truth. It may have been honest, but it wasn't truly representing what your team was capable of and what needed to be done. So it became, and the phrase I prefer is being data informed, so that
Yeah.
you can take that into consideration and use that as inspiration or some direction or even just some guidelines to be some bumpers that you bounce off of so that you know you're still going in. Is
Yeah,
that
I
something
mean,
that you got to see?
yeah, I think I think we all know what strictly data-driven games feel like. They don't really feel like they have a soul sometimes. Like, and people love bespoke content, but I think, that change of figuring out the nuances using, a lot of like user research, and user research was a big part of our job too, right? Like I had a really cool user researcher person on my team for my project specifically, and like them and I would just like sit, we would like, if we have a play test, like what are the questions that we want to ask and just go back and forth. And so like, I knew what I wanted to like have looked at, but I didn't necessarily know what to ask or how to word the question. And so I think like the combination of the two was like really powerful and made, just the work that we did that much more efficient and like useful.
Now, you mentioned that you kind of got done telling stories about dragons, and your history and your career puts you in a lot of MMOs,
Yes.
a lot of
Yeah.
massive spaces with long progression, and it's just got a lot to it. Now, are you done with MMOs? Do you still play MMOs? Would you want to work on another one?
Work on another one. But I don't really play them. I had a really traumatic experience in my so I got this job at Cryptic, and I didn't even play the game before I went for the interview because I like had maybe $50 a week for food. I just got out of college, right? And so I get this offer and I go in and I ask a really stupid question and got my ass handed to me by the players, and that like sucked. And so I just, I will try an MMO. So I play MMOs as a single player. That's how I play MMOs.
I do something very similar because I'm very much just where I want to explore and not make it a second job. I played World of
Yep.
Warcraft way too
Yep.
much.
Yep.
And when I was like, well, Thursdays are off because it's Molten Core night, I can't get together with my friends
Yeah.
because then it's Blackwing Lair on Friday. And we're really making a push. So we're going to be doing Friday, Saturday, Sundays. And I'm like, I did baseball. I did football. I've done 2-a-days and 3-a-day practices. And I decided that was not for me at some point. And like when WoW became that, and then the dailies are like, okay, do your day, all your dailies, make sure you're
Yeah.
contributing to the guild bank of potions and all of this. I'm like, I can't do another job. I'm already working one. So I
And you
can
know how the
totally understand.
sausage is made, so it kind of takes away some of the magic.
Right? And I mean, as a side tangent. I'll get back to my original question in a second. But MMOs are so number heavy. Like
Yeah.
I played Maple Story
Yeah.
and like WoW, and like I tried watching like the Team Liquid Race to World First for a World of Warcraft raid,
Boy.
and it's phenomenal energy. Love the energy. But when I look at the players' screens, they're not playing the game. They can't
No,
see the
no.
art.
Nope. You
It's
got your
just
UI is
UI.
just, yep.
Just UI. And I'm like, I don't
And
want to play the
timers and
UI.
like for me, my neurospiciness will not allow me to sit and play a game for an hour. So like I will just let my friends down if they want me to raid with them. So I've just kind of decided my favorite type of game is like open world RPGs. So like MMO are just kind of an extension of that, but with like different systems layered on top that
Yeah.
keep you engaged.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, I might get an hour to sit down,
Yeah.
maybe. And it's
And then you
like,
get
I don't.
FOMO. You're like, oh, I just this blah blah, blah," like, and you're just like, yeah, it's for me, I feel that 100%. Like I feel like there's a certain age that some folks will age out, and I have aged out of MMOs.
So it sounds like open world RPGs are your favorite genre.
Yes.
Do you have a particular top three?
Ooh. Yes, I do. So like I am probably this is the most milquetoast top three you're ever gonna get, but Fallout. I like Fallout because of like the incredible environmental storytelling that's really dark but funny. Same with BioShock. BioShock is also another one of my favorite IPs. Like I feel like, each one of the games, like same with Fallout, they've all had their pros and cons, but I've always found myself completely like immersed in the world and like wanting to learn more about it to the point that I'm like buying BioShock books and like I don't even read anymore. Like so I was just like I need to read this novel. And I think let's see my third one, I may have to say like I really enjoyed The Outer Worlds. But both
Yeah,
of those
yeah.
games were really good. Like just because same, it's like there is a level of like dark snarkiness that's like so hard to do in games that those folks do incredibly well. And so I'm always like, where is the next really messed up joke about corporations, you know? Like, and yeah, I like that stuff definitely feeds me to keep me going.
Now we're going to get spicy with the questions. That was the softball. What's your least favorite genre?
I would have told you mobile, but now I am attached to this match 3 game that I probably put in like 8 to 10 hours a week, so I can't say mobile anymore. I'm really bad at RTSs. Like
What would
yeah.
what would you do to fix or make an RTS more approachable for you?
For me, it's again, it's like I could sit there for 20 minutes maybe. And I know there are some RTSs that have like 20-minute matches. I think LoL even does or something. But for me, one, also I don't like to be yelled at and I don't like people being mean to me online. So like online games are hard for me. And yeah, just like sitting there and just like kind of resource tracking, I'm really hard. So I don't know, like just maybe if you had one of those like auto dialer phone RT, whatever those auto clicker games, that I could play an RTS then, but I don't know how much that would be an RTS.
Did you ever play Total Annihilation?
Yes, yes. Wait, which one was Total Annihilation? That wasn't that Z studio in Seattle, was it? Which one was Total Annihilation?
That was it Cave Dog? Was it Cave Dog?
No, but it was a lot of those folks because Clayton was my old manager. He came from there. Oh, yeah, Total A. No, so I've never played that.
It was the foundation to Supreme Commander,
I'm gonna
and
go
that
Gas Tower
one,
Games, right?
yeah,
It was,
yeah, yeah.
yes, yes.
And that was one that was for me, that was the RTS that turned me on to RTSs, because I had played Warcraft 1, which was nothing like Warcraft 2 or Warcraft 3.
Oh, yeah.
Like that one was early days and the UX was awful. You want a lesson in UX? Look at from Warcraft 1 to 2, night and day difference. But I didn't like the base building in 1 because you had to build roads around your base to then build buildings off of it. They dropped that in 2, which was a godsend. But Total Annihilation, instead of going out and like farming non-renewable resources, you went out and you were building like power collectors. So then you were constantly churning and you didn't have to manage all of your miners. You didn't have to
Oh, that's
manage your
nice.
peasants. And it was super nice. And so then you could manage your production level. You could crank out a whole bunch of units, but then you expended your foundation and then you had to outperform what you were bringing in. So it made it a whole lot easier for like even my brother and I to just do, okay, wait 10 minutes and then just build the biggest army you can and we'll just throw each other all the stuff at each other. And it was like playing micro machines basically.
Yeah, I definitely like I could do that. Like that if if there could be something where I wasn't just like having to constantly hyper fixate on something, I could do it.
Have you tried tabs?
Tabs, like internet tabs?
No, not internet. No, not what is it? It's like
Tabs
totally
game.
absurd battle.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, look at this thing. No, but this is this like the human fall flat kind of thing where you're just like,
kind of.
yeah, yeah.
You throw massive armies at each other and
That's
it's ridiculous.
cool. Yes.
Yeah.
Yay, physics.
Yeah, we get weird as you start exploring those different interpretations of a genre. So I like to play around with that and kind of see what you can do with a mode or a game that no one else is doing stuff with. So
How do you feel about the rise of friend swap? Like how do you feel about that whole genre?
I think I think it's pretty great in that it's people who can just throw each other together and have a good time. For me, that's what games are, and let people do what they need to do to have that gathering, to have that camaraderie, to have those memories. Because that's kind of what we had growing up. Like I think about the time on the NES, there were bad games.
Yeah,
There were
like a
terrible games
lot.
on the Commodore 64 and terrible games on the NES and on the Sega, on the Super Nintendo. All of the games that you don't hear about, like everyone's like, oh my God, Chrono Trigger, 30th anniversary, fantastic. We need a remake. Final Fantasy VII, you get a total redo. But there were some games,
Oh my
like I
God,
love
Superman? The Superman game or
Superman.
the Superman?
Yeah,
The
E.T. Like
Yes,
E.T. that
yes.
was dumpstered by the tens of thousands of cartridges that partially caused the collapse. Like it's stuff like that that I remember playing. And yeah, Wolfenstein was awesome.
Yeah, Quake, Doom, any of those like
Quake.
LAN. Yeah, yeah.
But I can say those LAN TCP/IP games of Redneck Rampage were very memorable for me. And they were like, you don't see a new Redneck Rampage game coming out or a new Carmageddon. I think there was a
I remember
Kickstarter for one.
Cardigan. Yes, I do
Yeah,
remember that. Yes,
there was a Kickstarter for that not too long ago. I don't think it went anywhere. And like Road Rash and stuff. Road Rash was fun,
Rush was
but like
amazing.
you get Friend Swap, it has its place, it has its space, and it obviously has its audience, so we can't deny it. It would be like back in the day or like 10 years ago, people saying mobile games aren't
I
doesn't
know.
make you a real gamer. Like
Yeah.
you're playing a video game with a controller. I mean, I would like you could probably have people questioning, oh, there was a like a TV based D&D game and you use your phone as your controller for your individual characters, and it's from like a studio that's, I don't think it's Chris Metzen, it's another former Blizzard like
There was also like
OG.
a Snoop Dogg like
Yeah,
trial show on Amazon. Yeah, I love. You know what? I like in Jackbox games too, right? Like all of these mediums that are just like slightly different. I will say I actually think the friend slot business model, coming from a business perspective, is amazing because you like $8, you're so going to spend $8. Like you get four of your buddies to spend $8. Nobody's got to be like, I'll pay you back. Like it works out so well and it really does kind of like, yeah, it's perfect. I enjoy it. I like RV There Yet? That game is hilarious.
my kids have been playing that this last week, and now we're like, okay, we're gonna do a 4 player evening of it coming
I
up,
love
and so
that.
this is going to be ridiculous, and we'll all be on Discord. We all have our setups, and so it's going to be a riot when we do
I
this.
foresee a
So
lot of screaming because that's how my group is.
I can't wait. I can't wait. And I mean, going back, peeling it back. My original question, where I was going with the least favorite genre and what you would do to fix that and go like make that more appealing, is that we're getting to things like friend slop, and we're getting to a level of accessibility to where we can start fixing things,
Yeah.
and we have the tools like Unity, Godot, Unreal, and there was like Unreal Engine for Fortnite that was helping people make their own games within that Fortnite ecosystem. And Roblox, you get these really fast iterations that we're not necessarily seeing the same development that we saw
I mean,
years ago.
it's changing, right? Like, and I think,
Yeah.
Gen Z and younger. I don't even know what all the generations are, but like, like my son who is almost 20 now, like really, really got into Minecraft and Roblox. And, like just watching him use that as a social platform during COVID and like connecting with his friends there. I have pretty strong feelings about Roblox about some other things, but like I think like that is, do I think UGC is the future? I can't say that. I don't, but like what I do think is like tiny bite-sized experiences like TikTok, I think those are really the attention span that some of the younger gamers are going to have, and we need to adapt to that in order to keep them like, or they're going to go somewhere else, right? They're going to go. So yeah, it's tough. Like, and I worry that with the new like way that our industry has been for the last few years, like we are not getting those new voices into our groups to be able to help us make the correct type of games for, the up and coming gamers that are coming into like, the new ecosystem.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of studios and voices that are heard right now are trying to hold on to the industry as it is, almost like it's like D&D. Like D&D is solid, it is foundational. It's not going anywhere because it is what it is. But you can't emulate that and expect to get the same results. Just like no one can copy WoW and get the same results until time has gone on, until there's a cycle. League of Legends, it's losing player base.
Is it?
It's
I
not
mean,
bring
I just feel like all of those just print money. Like I heard Fortnite is losing players, and
yeah,
that blows my mind. But
yep. I mean, Fortnite lost players to Grand Theft Auto Online
oh
and
yeah,
to
that.
Roblox. And so, and then you count on the aging out of players and playing something else. Their social circles move on. They're not inspired to play as much. But like League of Legends, it's been around 14 years now. The people who were playing it originally, they're aging out, but it's an old game. It hasn't changed. There's new champions, there's some alternative modes, but they're not bringing in younger players to play the game because it's not interesting. So while they're bringing in OG, like vanilla League of Legends as a
Yeah.
mode, like that's one thing. The other project that I'm really curious to hearing about, and I expect we'll hear something more in the next couple months, is League of Legends Next. They did the mobile Wild Rift, but they have, if they're really smart, they get enough data. Obviously, I would be really interested in hearing what Next looks like for that franchise in that genre. So I'm really, and I swear if it is like 10 or like 15-minute matches and shared leveling pools, and if it's like Heroes of the Storm, I'm going to lose my mind because I loved Heroes of the Storm,
Okay,
and
I was like, in a good way or a
that
bad
got
way?
canceled. I loved Heroes, and it got canceled so fast, even though it was so good.
Yeah, what didn't it
For
come out? Like I played the beta, I
it,
remember,
it,
right?
it
Like,
came out
yeah.
like it came out. What was that? Like 2016, 2018, something
Okay,
like
yes,
that,
I do remember
or
that. Yeah.
it might have been canceled 2018. Maybe it was 2014. I don't remember. It's been a while. But like it came out years later after Dota 2 and after League had been like really catching fire. And those two games were fighting each other even in the esports world for audience and just kind of clout. And Heroes was just years late to the party, and it was a more casual take, and it right. And like I got into it hard. So I like if that's what League of Legends Next is, I'm like I hate seeing those products that were ahead of their time
Yes.
and then they
Yes.
miss out,
I even think Second Life was ahead of its time, like back in the
right?
day, right? Like,
That's still
yeah,
going.
I
That's
know it's
still going.
crazy.
That's crazy.
Like, I don't know, like, so I saw a presentation at a talk once about live ops, and it was the top 10 games from 10 years prior to the year that we were talking about, right? And so maybe it was like 2018. So 2008 to 2018. Only three of those games changed. Like, it's Dota, Fortnite, Minecraft, like all, like, it's all the same games 10 years later, except for three of them. And I think like LOL got in there or something. And it's just like, I really do wonder, like, when is that going to change? Because it has to. If there's anything consistent in life, it's change, right? And so, like, is it going to be the drop off of live ops game as the total? I don't think that's it. But like, is it going to go more into like, Roblox or something like, more younger generation geared or popular?
Yeah, and when ArenaNet announced Guild Wars 3, they're saying like we're not going to make you like FOMO, like really
Yeah.
harvest that. They're not going to make you a slave to the live ops treadmill and everything and be like, okay, we want you to be able to pick up and put this game down whenever you want. They already did that with the Living World approach, and that was fantastic. I thought like it was a very welcoming experience, but like having seen how the sausage is made and all the playtests that we did and everything, I'm like, okay, I get it. I don't need this. I did my legendary weapon
Do you
once.
need
I'm
another
okay.
currency? But
Nope.
that, that's how the best way you could balance it at the time because it would be really hard otherwise. So I know it was done, but like I think Colin coming out and saying all those things is really good because it just shows me that they have been listening to like current trends and
Yeah.
you know.
And that tells me it's trying to future proof itself. It is listening to players. It is listening to what got them such a dedicated player base for Guild Wars 2. And on like I'd put money on this. What Colin is saying is what he ultimately wanted to do or ultimately wants to do. He has authority to do that. He probably has NCSoft's ear and saying this is how we want to do it. This is why we're going to do it, and he's going to do it. Like I usually when you get those early announcements and you get those early insights, you're like, yeah, we'll see if that lasts the 4 years of development or whatever. They're coming
Yeah.
out, what was it, next year, the 2028, and it's like,
Saying to me too. Like that's, I mean, just that bit. And I don't know what the size of the game is, but Guild Wars 2 is very large. And so like, and I know it took 10 years because I remember I worked at 38 Studios and they had been working on it for a while. And we were all watching Guild Wars 2 because of the new open world events were very new and awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited. And you know what? Like, honestly, like I don't necessarily want it to be another Guild Wars 2 because Guild Wars 2 is so special in its own way. Like, I really hope that they're like able to keep the joy, like the surprise and joy, delight that, they're really good at doing and like the Guild Wars IP, but I hope they do try some new stuff and I know if they do, it's going to be good. So like I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're doing.
and I think that approach is just what we need in games to be more flexible and more open. We've talked player cohorts before, and knowing that there's your explorers, your achievers, your PvPers, your PvEers, and all of that, like it gives you identity for players in your game, but it's not necessarily making that game for them.
Yeah. That's the
And so
secret sauce is figuring it out, right? Like you've got to
right.
You've got to figure out what your players motivate them, and then you've got to, like give that to them. But that might not all be even close to the same thing. And I think that's kind of how Guild Wars got your kind of three game types, right? WoW, PvP, and open world. But I think by doing that, like that was really intelligent because I don't want to get stabbed when I'm trying to go over the bridge, like in Conan or whatever, right? Like that's not
Right.
fun to me. I don't like that level of competition. So like giving me the option to not forcing that on me was great. But you like the accessibility thing, right? Like I think that's one of the most like appreciative things that I had about working at Xbox Publishing was like that was such a big part of our process was like, like they have a whole department that have just like focus on different types of accessibility, like regional or like, hey, can we pick this game down? Can we put this controller down and pick it up easily? And like that's like something you think about, but even like the difficulty stuff too. And accessibility, I think you think about things like color blindness and other, but there's so many other things that to think about. And I'm glad that, they're doing that because I think it also means that like the other big publishers are doing that because I don't like spoon feed me my content. Like I don't want it to be hard. And so like give me the easy mode.
I will say the fact that Xbox leaned into accessibility by making the accessible controller and
Mhm.
making that very, from my perspective, it seems like they're really trying to listen and enable players who haven't been able to play with the setup everyone else uses of the keyboard, mouse, and standard controller. Like being able to open those gates so people can play using a controller, to me, is no different than friend swap and allowing people to play games that they
Yeah.
wouldn't otherwise be playing or having those memories with other players. And so I that topic of accessibility, along with UI UX and analytics, have been the progression, I would say, over the last 20 years, because it was just very much crank out your game, get a new game, and then you had things like loot boxes and live ops that kind of came in. But the major developments, analytics, UI UX, accessibility being almost an extension of
Yeah.
UX as it started, but now it's very much its own thing, because you look at that, every Xbox game now starts with that huge list of accessibility options. Amazing.
I remember
Where
in
do you,
Gears of War when they, in like the beginning, they had you look up, and that was like whatever you did you invert it? Did you look down? Like it set the inversion for the, and it was baked into the like, the Fatui, and I just was like, holy crap, this is awesome. Like it doesn't feel tacked on, and it was really cool.
That's fantastic. I didn't know that they did that. I love that reading of you chose how you did it and they already have their preliminary setups ready to read that. That's fantastic. It honestly reminds me of Halo Wars, which I was absolutely shocked to see when I was a tester on it. And when I was excited to see an RTS on a console,
Yeah.
and controlling an RTS with a controller having come from the PC world, I'm like, there's no way you're gonna do this. It's not gonna feel good. They had like 16 different controller configurations that they were like, okay, we need everyone to figure out what works. And they had 16 of, and they shipped with like 4, and they were some of the best controller setups I think I've ever experienced across any game in any genre. I felt immediately at home with a genre that hadn't existed on.
That's cool.
It was super cool. I was
Some don't do
really
it so
shocked.
well. There are some games
No,
out
no,
there, like I watched my boyfriend like literally slam his head up against a wall for 4 hours, almost straight, trying to find a straight road in a popular city sim builder that is out there right now. And it was, first of all, from like a user research perspective, it was fascinating because like he just wouldn't stop. There was so many combos, and like I was like, we can Google it, and he's like, oh no, I'm figuring this shit out. And so like it was just like, yeah, like some transitions are good and then some like, and honestly, it's a city builder. Like how can you make that easy like a controller? You just can't. But it was an interesting like user research moment for me where I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I would definitely not do that. I would throw the controller and uninstall the game and then call it a day.
yeah. There's like I downloaded a number of games during the Steam days just to try out a whole bunch of demos that were coming up, and there were some where I'm like, I'm out. Like that's not. I'll find the developer and be like on Blue Sky and be like, hey, can I send you some feedback? This was a little rough. I'll be honest, and like I'm sure it's point blank what they're going to get in volume, but like I want to make sure some of this feedback is gotten to, because
Yeah, well,
the
clearly, like, you're not some like dude yelling about it into like Reddit subthread, which is like, and I'm not shitting on like Reddit, at least for Guild Wars for us, was such a huge like insight into what people were thinking. And like, yes, there's always going to be loud folks who are unhappy, but like if you can parse through that and just like let that roll off your back, like the nuggets that I found in there of like what people were looking for, even bugs. Like I almost broke the whole game on like Doric. Like I shipped that and like I had that like you do more events and you get more buffs. Like my math was totally off. And like I went into the office at 11 o'clock at night because I was so stressed out after reading about how it was broken. And I totally checked something in, like told them to hot fix it without having a buddy. And that was like, I will use that in interviews as examples of things I will never do again. But like, thank you, Reddit.
Yep. Oh yeah. I broke Jira at ArenaNet for like 2 hours one time.
Oh, well, Jira's a beast.
Yeah, yeah. That was my
Did you
QA.
did you get yelled at? Were people like, "Where's it
Yeah,
going?" Oh
yeah.
yeah.
I'm like, I'm on it. Don't worry. Everyone knew I was the one messing with all the back end stuff, and I was like, oh, Joe must be doing something. Yeah, fun. So fun early days story about Guild Wars 2. We used a database called Fogbugs. It was only for bugs. There was no tasks.
Well, I've heard
There
about
was
Bogbog.
when we were transitioning from Fogbug, like it was after Guild Wars 2 shipped, and
Yep,
or it was
and
about
there was
ready to
like
ship.
you guys automated it somehow, and there was some like very interesting naming conventions used in the bugs, and I was like, "Oh, that's a fog bug."
Yep, yep. And we were transitioning to, I think it was called Dev Track, and there was no, like, Fogbugs had like no support to it whatsoever. When we contacted the owners who were running the database, they're like,
Wasn't it like
wait,
shareware? Wasn't it like
it was kind of like shareware, but they're like,
yeah?
wait, what do you mean it has like 400 users in it? It's only supposed to use 100. You got it to work with like 400 people. That's incredible. How many issues do you have? They were excited that we were like stress testing their software. And we're like, we have over like 700,000 tickets in here. They're like, how big is your database? Like, that's insane. You shouldn't be able to do that. And so they were like excited and helpful at helping us
That's cool.
transition off. But we had to get them to send us a hard drive with the database because they couldn't transfer it
Oh my
over
gosh.
like FTP or anything. It kept timing out. It was too long. Their network was too slow. Our IT guys struggled with it for like a week and a half trying to get it to work. And so we transitioned off of that by sending a hard drive from California to Washington. And then when we transitioned to DevTrack, we had to send it via mail to the other team to be like, can you import all of our stuff? Thanks. Like it was,
Wild. I mean, I
and
made
when
MMOs in like spreadsheets. Like City Heroes and City Villains were spreadsheets. It's just like crazy the stuff that we used to do back then to like even get stuff going.
Yeah, Colin Johansson will tell the story of Guild Wars 1 and how it was made in Notepad. Like if it, like, and now everyone's got like Godot and Unity and Roblox and Fortnite or Unreal, and now they're making like games that would have taken months to have made. That's crazy. And it's like between UGC and mods and being able to just copy paste someone else's project and be like, I want
It's
this, and
mine.
using,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think the only downfall to that is they do have a hard time navigating through this all of this stuff to figure out what I like. Like there's just like it's like decision paralysis constantly.
yeah, yeah. And I think I'm excited about the experimentation that comes out from that,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I think with like Fortnite, I was really excited by the new genre of battle royales that came out. Like I know PUBG was its own thing, but
Mhm.
Fortnite
Mhm.
took it to another level. I think about like League of Legends and Dota taking the RTS and putting a real competitive spin on it. You games like I'm gonna blank on it now. Splitgate, where you get
Oh
the
yeah,
portal
yeah,
the
yeah. Yep.
portal gun and you're playing Quake essentially, and like that was exciting to mash things up. I'm really excited about seeing what this next generation does to mash things together and say we want a little of this, a little of that. And we were with along the lines of cohorts and analytics, is there something that you think is kind of like that next department that you're going to see in either traditional studios that have those couple hundred person rosters, or on those double A, single A studios that are spinning up? Do you think that there's a notable difference in structure or organization? Are they going to use a GD? Like,
Knows,
what do you
right?
think?
will probably get a lot of shit for saying this from certain people that may listen to this, but like I do kind of think AI is here. I think it is being shoved down our throats, but I don't necessarily, I see it doing something. Now, do I see it being creative? Like what I use it for is a tool, right? Like research, make my resume not suck, things like that. But like I would never ask it to like build me an open world, with like 100 quests in it. But like I do think in some way, I don't know what that would be called, like a prompt master or something. I mean, that is a terrible mashup of words, but somebody who either can figure out how people can use it as a tool to make their jobs more efficient and like to prototype faster, to prove things out faster. But I don't think that's a world I necessarily want to live in, but I think that's the world that we may live in.
I'll broach the sensitive subject of layoffs because I'm in the middle of it. You just experienced it. What has that experience been like for you and understanding what that transition looks like?
Well, it took me almost a year to find a job. And as somebody who has been doing this for 20 years, actually, this is my 21st year, and I know a lot of people in the industry, like I had prepared myself for the worst, and I would say that there was even more fuckery than I could have imagined. And so like, and I mean like I've had so many full interviews that just like went south for one reason or another, or didn't go south, but like they couldn't like afford me, and I'm not trying to sound like a jerk, but like, I game companies are changing, and I think like it took me about 6 months to really figure out like how much of a big change that was. And so, I think I was very staunchly against AI before, but I did learn very quickly that like ATS systems really look for a certain thing, and like, your Copilot or ChatGPT can help you get there. But I've also think like it does all that stuff like at 6.5 out of 10. Like AI can do anything, but it'll do it really mediocre, except for ATS apparently. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think that this whole thing was very humbling, and I just I was really hoping it was going to be over. Clearly, it's not, and I don't know what the future is. Like, I don't know if we're going to be like gig workers, like DoorDash drivers, like, or we're all going to work at co-ed, like, like co-dev and like just kind of like come in on projects at certain points. And I don't know. I wish I did have a more positive outlook, but the cynic in me is like, we're all going to be fucking Uber drivers.
I mean,
And there's nothing wrong with
it's
that, but like, I like
yeah,
security and health insurance.
it's not the industry that we came into, and it's
Yeah, yeah, it's totally
not the
changed.
way that we saw it coming, and so it's like, okay, maybe it's not for us as it transitions more. And
I'm
we
thinking
already
about
have that
that.
conversation in games of being like, when a game comes out and someone complains about it, it's because some of the critique that comes out is that it's like, okay, then that game's just not for you. You can be disappointed, but don't be angry that this game isn't for you, or the designers took a certain approach to it that you don't agree with. And it's like, okay, just have a little space. You don't have to like
You
this
don't have
game.
to play
And
the game. Yeah.
right,
There's a ton of games out there.
more than ever, every
Yes.
day coming out, like, come on now. But like, we get this kind of acceptance as people who have been in for a long time and understanding that things are changing. What do we want out of this? I kind of, maybe this is the other side of that codev coin. One thing I've seen in my time is that teams never stay the same. They barely ever stay together as it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of transition when a game launches, or when it used to go gold and everything like that. You would see people start rolling off.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
They would get
yeah.
their launch bonus, and then they would hit the exodus. They needed a change of pace, they needed to move, they needed one thing or another. So this idea of codev to me feels like you keep it tight because you have the tools like AI, like Godot, like Unity, that are easily accessible, and you can learn how to use those and be proficient with them. You have games that you can already be doing your own user research on and like
Mm,
understand reverse engineering those things. But with that codev, even if you're working on one game and it's done, you find your other client and you're working with that next game, there's that opportunity and that potentiality of that small tight core staying together from
yeah.
one project to another. And that's something that I would really like to see happen. I don't know if it is happening. I need to talk to some more co-devs. Like,
Well, I think you made a very astute point when you said, like, you used to finish a game, it would go gold, and then you, like, kind of knew that, like, that was your time there and you rolled off and you either started looking for a new job or, moved to a different part of the company or team or whatever. And I think, like, over the last 20 years, I was very lucky. I got into the MMOs. So, like, I never had to experience that myself, but I worked with many people who did and, like, kind of saw that mindset, right? So I've seen, like, the industry kind of go from, co-dev, like, project based, you go find something else, you move your family if you have to, which is a bummer, but to, like, live service MMOs where people could be, like, employed full time. And I think now that things are changing, people who have not experienced that, like, first, project-based kind of employment, like, are having a hard time adjusting to, like, what that new world looks like in an employment, like, situation for them.
yeah. Well, we've been going at it for a
I know.
while, so I could keep talking with you for a long, long time, and I'm sure I'll be bringing you back on the show. But is there any last advice, tips, tricks, perspectives, ideas, values that you want to put out there for anyone to listen to, and or where people might be able to reach you if they have other questions and looking for
Yeah.
guidance on the design side? Like anything that you want to share?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like, ask me, how do you be successful in the game industry? Like, how do you kind of get jobs and stuff? And I think, like, the industry is small and we're all here to make really cool stuff. Like, let your ego stay at home. Like, just be kind to each other and, like, you'll just get the best out of everybody. And if you want to find me, I'm on LinkedIn. I do, like, get a lot of emails. I try to be reactive, like, try to respond to all of them. I'm always down for, a small conversation about, like, if you're looking to get into the industry or you want, like, a resume review. I am so happy to help with that stuff.
So that's great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Nellie. It was great catching up. And again,
Yeah.
congrats on your new role. I'm very excited for you. And we'll have to get together sometime and or do another show and have some more fun.
Yes. Yes. And if not, I will see you out at the, like, fun social stuff in our game scene.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. We'll catch you next time and next week on the next Summoning Hour podcast. See you, everybody.
Bye.